Welcome to the Leadership Passport. I'm delighted to welcome my guest today, Jennifer Abrams. Formerly a high school English teacher and new teacher coach, Jennifer is currently a communications consultant and author. Among many, her publications include Having Hard Conversations and Stretching Your Learning Edges Growing Up at Work. Jennifer has been a featured columnist on growth and change for the learning professional, as well as the International Educator, and she keynotes, facilitates, and coaches at schools worldwide. She was honored to be named one of the 18 women all K-12 educators should know by Education Week's Finding Common Ground. Welcome, Jennifer.
Good morning from California. Nice to see you and to be with you on the podcast.
Yeah, nice to see you as well. So before we get into some education-related questions or communications-related questions, if your leadership style was a song or a movie, what would it be and why?
Oh, I think Tightrope by Janelle Monáe. I think it's a leadership, but not necessarily a followership style. It's the idea of I'm fully aware that what leadership requires is sort of that balance and adaptability and strength and just some courage to keep going. And not everybody's up to do it, but that's what I would say. That's my song when I have to get pumped up when I'm going to do a keynote or something.
Fantastic. So what inspired you to do the kind of the work that you do with schools around the world?
Before I worked around the world, I worked here in the US. And what I discovered was that we had a credential, many of us as educators, in teaching, and we did not have a credential in how to talk to other adults. And yet the essentialness of our capacity to communicate effectively with each other ended up being something that I started studying. And so what I do now is talk to people around the world in K-12 education, strangely not about the education piece, but about the communication piece between the adults. It's just too important and yet not a part of our qualifications. For the most part, in any country that I've actually worked in, and it's just, that's what led me on this journey. And then I ended up moving toward international work by having the privilege of working at a PTC conference with Bambi Betts. It not just interviewed me. I had to have video, and I was young, and she basically said, "Okay, let's see what you can do," and that sort of led me into working internationally, not just domestically.
Fantastic. And has there been a defining moment that you can recognize in within and across some of your work with schools, whether that's in the States or overseas?
A defining moment for me, I guess, was I was working, really trying to make this work in the East Asia region. And so I was at a conference there, and I ended up recognizing that I needed to, and I say this with great respect to all of my colleagues who are from the US. I had been too enthusiastic, too US sort of energetically focused. And I realized that in order for me to be effective in other places, I needed to modify my presentation, not my content, but my presentation. And it became much more, it just became easier for people to understand and to find common ground with if I could modify how I was coming across, not what I was saying. I still was authentic. But I think that was a very big wake up call about cross-cultural communication. And if I wanted to be effective, I needed to recognize just all the differences that we had and how we needed to come across. And so that was a defining moment for me.
Amazing. Um,
Yeah.
and when we talk about maybe some of the realities of leadership and the work that you do, what's the toughest leadership challenge you've faced, and how did you navigate it?
I don't think I've navigated it that well. And I'm talking about leadership in my consulting and working with leaders. So I have come up against an awareness. And I don't think it's a challenge, but it's just sort of, you, there's that quote that people can only meet you at the level that they can meet themselves, kind of a thing. And I sometimes want people to be at a different place than they are, willing to be as vulnerable as I could be. And I'm not in their situation. I want them to be two more steps ahead, having a different conversation, being courageous to do certain things. And I'm not, I guess the challenge is, how do you meet people where they are? I think I said that again, just in the terms of just my flexibility of how I present. It's also the leadership challenge of, you can't go faster than where people can come with you. And so, do you want to be right or effective? And how do you back up the truck and be where they are? Or as a consultant, maybe not work with that client until you can do what you want to do with them. And that doesn't make anybody wrong, and it doesn't make anybody um, incorrect or not successful. It just means that we're in different places in the world and everybody's got their journey. So for me, it's letting go of forcing people to be in a place that they just can't be, given their context, given their leadership, given their boards, you just can't make things happen in that way. You can be as persuasive as you can, and there's just some moments when you have to drop it.
And that must be really difficult and a real challenge, because you talk about a lot, stretching people's learning edges, and so balancing meeting them where they are, but really giving them that
Yeah.
nudge and pushing them and taking them outside their comfort zone.
Yeah, it's a support and challenge moment. And so how much support, how much challenge? Where's the it's the tightrope, as I just mentioned before. Um, I've had a number of conversations just about following up and moving forward into the 2025-2026 year, with clients. And some people in their leadership teams are raring to go, and sometimes the head is not raring to go. And how do I support that? And how do I support the people that are their directors or their principals underneath the head as they're working in that situation? It's challenging, and it's life. I mean, it's political. It's how do you do the best you can with what you have, where you are, given the context that you're in, and then sometimes helping people step away from that context, but not to make people. I just have to make sure that I feel okay about who I am and go do the work where I can. But it's a challenge for me as a consultant. And I wonder, and I'm going to say this, that's not necessarily everybody's consulting journey. Depending on what you are talking about, it may be different. Mine happens to be about communication, and that has culture, it has positionality, it has power, it has so many layers to it that I'm not sure, and somebody can fight me on this, if I said let's talk about math or literacy, I don't know if I would have the same challenges, but I don't know. It's just that's what I chose to talk about.
Yeah. So has there been any mistakes, or a particular mistake that stands out to you that shaped your approaches in the work that you do?
I think I'm going back to the same thing over and over again. Um, being running ahead, being too enthusiastic, not pacing before I lead, getting too far beyond those that I am trying to work with. And I don't say that in a arrogant way. I don't say that in a I guess I'm not trying to say I'm too far ahead in that ahead is better. That's not what I'm saying. I got out of step. Let's just put it that way. I was not conscious about the moment, the world as it is, and that was a mistake. I just jumped to another place and didn't turn around or didn't look to the side and realize they weren't with me. And that has been, in many, many ways, the challenge that I've faced in my personal life, in my professional life. Yeah. It's just I have a vision and you can't you're not going anywhere unless somebody's going with you.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. So a lot of the leaders I talk to have conversations with talk about imposter syndrome and, second guessing themselves or questioning if is that a thing for you? And if so, how do you deal with that?
Um I I have felt like an imposter many, many a time, and how do I deal with it now? I stay true to what I know. I am aware of what I can do, and I guess I remember when I was starting, well, what do you know? You haven't been in that job. You can't work with, I mean, people made me wrong a lot. In my first book, I wrote a book called Having Hard Conversations. And they said, well, you could learn how to do that from where you're sitting, but you could never help somebody who's a principal, or you could never help somebody who's working in said space because you've never done that. And for a year, I shrunk. I felt like I couldn't help. I was such an imposter, and it made everything bad. And what I realized was that person was making me feel small, and it wasn't that I didn't have something to contribute. So I started going a little more slowly out there, and then realized that it didn't matter. What she was saying was inaccurate. What I was watching is a lot of people doing a lot of things that had no expertise in it. And then I got even angrier on another side. So I started to recognize, how can I not be an imposter? What do I know? What can I share? Where am I going to need to be humble and suspend my certainty that it's just a way and not the way? And the more that I kind of shape what I can legitimately and confidently share, and as long as I did that, I didn't feel like I was an imposter. I felt like I could stand in the middle of it at 100% confidence, but I didn't jump too far ahead. And that's the irony, is that's what I've been talking about the whole time we've been talking, Kevin, is it's that balance of how far ahead can you get? And that's always been my thing. Like, where can I stand confidently?
Amazing. I Is there a particular, professional practice or habit that's changed the
Mm,
game for you?
this is going to sound awful. It's a great question. So this is a professional thing as a consultant. How much do people charge? What can you charge? And if I notice that there are people that I respect or whatever that have charged 2 times how much I respect. If I and I go, "Really? They do that?" So what changed the game for me was to say, "What can I feel confident doing?" And this is really crass. Somebody from Wisconsin said to me, "If this is an interesting thing. If you can say, 'This is how much I am,' and you don't throw up, then you're okay." Like, if you can go, yep, I'm 4,000, you know what I mean? And if you can say it with confidence, and after a while, I kind of stood up and said, I can do this. And people went, oh, okay. So it's like, it's that same thing of what you just said, is like, what's the imposter? Like, what's your confidence circle? And what I guess changed the game was, if other people are asking for all that and they're getting it and you feel comfortable where you are, you can also ask for something. And so I sometimes will say, what would so and so ask? What would so and so ask for? What kind of confidence would they exude? And if I believe that I am equal to them, I do the same thing. So I sort of like, that's something in my mind that I go, okay, what would Kevin charge? What would he say? Right. And if I kind of go with like somebody that I feel like I want to achieve at, I go, okay, if I want to be him, I do that. So I psych myself into that by bringing a face to my mind.
Amazing, amazing. So, if we cast our minds to the future now of education and perhaps international education, and I'm really interested to hear your kind of unique perspective with the work that you do with adults in schools.
Yeah.
How do you see international sort of education or school leadership changing over the next 5 or 10 years?
Mm, I first off, people are going to retire. People are going to move on. And how do I see it changing? We have to mentor the people that are just starting in leadership at much deeper levels, much more thoughtful levels. We can't just try to keep our jobs or do whatever. We have to say, if we want to leave a legacy. So when I'm saying in 10 years, I might not be working, you might be in a different place in your work. We have to look back and say, where's the bench? Where's somebody that we're going to get off the bench to do this? And so I'm being much more thoughtful about developing people. Where is it going to be in 10 years? Given the VUCA nature of the world right now, Romania just had an election yesterday. Portugal had an election yesterday. I'm living in a country where things are very bumpy. I'm not sure where international education is going to go. I'm just going to say that the world needs people who can be on the tightrope, be self-regulating, manage adaptability and flexibility, and we need to start to mentor to do that because we're going to need them. And I'm writing some articles for the International Educator um, about sort of managing yourself and managing others in polarizing times. And every day it's like, what can I do, like at the very littlest core? You know what I mean? Like, how can I manage me? We're just working on day to day, step by step kind of stuff with those things because it's a bumpy ride and we need to
Yeah,
love the
and
new folks. Yeah.
yeah, and so talking about now, sort of up and coming leaders, what's one piece of advice you give to an aspiring school leader?
I think that we don't need to have all the answers, but we need to start building an inner strength to manage to I almost say we got to meditate more. Do you know what I mean? Like we have to have an inner muscle because the world is going to blow us about, and we need to have a strong sense of what we're about and where we want to go and stay true to that. Somebody was asking me about like, should we do more values based work? Yeah, we could do some values based work. We could work on our inner muscles to just sort of, I worry about the elders, and I consider myself at 58 eldering, not providing aspiring leaders with the mentoring they need and the ballast and the supports and the honest truth of what we went through. I think we don't tell people that it's bumpy, that it's overwhelming. They look and they say, "Oh, you're so often wrong, but never in doubt." You know, were you never in doubt? I have stomach upset. Did you never have stomach upset? Because we want to lead with such confidence. And I think we have to teach people that it is a bumpy ride and what our strategies are. So that's what I want to teach them is that you're not crazy. It is bumpy and we've got to work together to try to get you some inner balance.
Yeah, fantastic, fantastic. So, a
Yeah.
couple of quick questions to wrap things up. Your
Please.
favorite book on leadership?
Wow, that's a really interesting question. I have so many. Um, I'm going to bring this up. A guy named Peter Block, and he worked with a gentleman, a philosopher named Peter Kestenbaum. They wrote a book called Freedom, and I think it was Freedom and Accountability. And it was about like, or look up anything by Block or Kestenbaum. That's all I can say. Yeah.
One thing that you do daily that helps you to lead better?
Well, I mentioned meditating. I wish I did it every day. I would say, I would say something like meditating, deep breathing, staying true to what I'm trying to do, not getting beyond my skis, staying true, don't being sucked by the wind. So meditating, I would say.
The strangest, weirdest, or funniest thing you've ever seen in a school?
So I was doing a workshop in Rotterdam, the Netherlands, and I was talking about not allowing things that were physically unsafe to happen. You have to have hard conversations about it. And as I was literally doing that workshop, I was pulled out because somebody had lit a campfire right outside the front door of the school on the front lawn. And I said, well, that's physically unsafe because it could just burn the whole front lawn and that would get to the door. And so he's like, yeah, you want to talk about hard conversations like in the moment? I'll show you one I have to have right now. Come with me. And I was like, I couldn't believe that that was literally happening at the moment. That was one. I have many others, but that's one of them.
Very good. A leader, past or present, you admire?
Oh God. Eleanor Roosevelt of past, two leaders that I think really changed the game for me and modeled were Art Costa and Bob Garmston from cognitive coaching. The fact that they designed something and created something and went and did it all over the world and made people more aware of who they were. I thought that they're amazing leaders.
And finally, best advice you've ever received?
You're fine. Don't worry about it. Run your own race. You'll be okay.
Fantastic. Well, that seems like a wonderful place to leave it. So thank you so much for joining me today, Jennifer. I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kevin.
Thanks so much for listening to the episode. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe, like, follow, etc. Drop a comment below to let me know anything you'd like covered in upcoming episodes or suggestions for future guests. You can also connect with me on Instagram and LinkedIn.